Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my hope and prayer that this video is actually going to find you guys in good health. Personally, I'm fine. Kisumu is also fantastic. Maybe you could let me know where you're watching the video from. The county or the country in case you are out of the republic. And by the way, those who are watching us from outside the country, may you raise up your hands and type the country you are watching us from. Raila Odinga yesterday led massive demonstrations in the country. Whether the demonstrations were successful or not depends with your own judgment. But what next for Raila Odinga and Azimio brigades after the demos? That is the biggest question which Kenyans are currently asking. Because remember, majority in Kenya Kwanza believed previously that Raila Odinga was going to call demonstrations. Kenyans were going to demonstrate in the streets. Then in the evening, they were going to go back home. Then after going home, the next day, Kenyans were going to go back to their business as usual. And for me, that's exactly the circle which has happened. But what next for Raila Odinga? In this video, I want us to look at what next for Raila Odinga and why I think Raila Odinga is up to something. But before I do that, in case you are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. And to the subscribers, I want to continue thanking you guys for your continued support, because without that support, this channel cannot be where it is now. Let us get back to the main issue. What next for Raila Odinga? That is the question. For me, Raila Odinga is planning some of the following. Number one is what he announced yesterday, the weekly demonstrations. Of course, I'll do a separate video about those weekly demonstrations. But why do you think Raila Odinga decided to announce weekly demonstrations? For me, the answer to that is simple. Just like I've always told you on this platform, that Raila Odinga is going to do to Ruto what Ruto did to Uhuru Kenyatta. Immediately, Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in as the next president, in office for the second term. Uhuru Kenyatta entered into handshake with Raila Odinga. That did not sit well with William Ruto. Then William Ruto started opposing Uhuru for 5 good years. That is what we should be expecting from Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is actually going to give Ruto hell of a problem for the next 5 years. But so that by the time Kenyans will be going to the elections, William Ruto will not have had peace during his reign as the president of the Republic of Kenya. But another important thing why Raila Odinga has called for these mandamanos is for the impact to be felt. Yesterday, the impact was felt, and Rigathi himself was like Kenya lost like 2 billion out of the demonstrations. And today you saw Kenya Kwanza brigades calling for a press conference to arrest Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, which means the impact were achieved. So this Monday or this weekly demos is what you guys should be focusing on. Yesterday's demo were actually peaceful. The supporters just went outside there. The police were there. In fact, in Kisumu, I think it was just kind of a game. Watu walikuwa wanacheza tu na polisi, police also enjoying. In fact, today I was with some police officers, they were like, hey, bwana watu wenu. But Raila Odinga is going to sustain these demos for greater impact. So that if you are saying that is sabotaging the economy, that sabotage is going to be long. The second thing which Raila Odinga is planning, or what next for Raila Odinga, is actually sustainability. And that has been one of the biggest questions. How will Raila Odinga sustain the demos? How will he sustain it? For me, Raila Odinga must have a clear plan on what the demos are supposed to achieve. Remember, majority of Azimio supporters expected Raila Odinga to announce to them some products which they were supposed to boycott. That did not happen. They expected to go to State House, to storm State House. That did not happen. So, in my view, Raila Odinga must come up with a proper plan on how these demos are going to take place. For example, I've been to Kisumu today and I talked to a few guys. The feeling is that yesterday's demonstrations didn't have leaders. And because it didn't have leaders, certain individuals or elements took advantage, because almost all leaders went to Nairobi in solidarity with Raila Odinga. So they were suggesting that next time there's an a mandamano, then each group should have a leader who will tell them, don't go there, don't do that. For example, there was a general agreement amongst the demonstrators that there was going to be no destructions of roads. That was a general consensus, because the road helps everybody, and if in case it's destroyed, who will make it? So the feeling is that a proper plan must be made. And that proper plan, in my view, and I've been told, Raila Odinga is now planning to engage the civil society, because most people believe that a demonstration organized by civil society will have more impact. And the other group is trying to bring on board is the church, so that some church leaders who are friendly to Azimio will start talking about these mandamanos, talking about the issues. Then those issues will actually be made to go viral. He's also planning to do international media interviews to expose more on what's happening. If you are keen, the international media actually picked only on one issue, that yesterday's demonstrations were about cost of living, which for me worked in the advantage of Raila Amolo Odinga. But he can now use the international media to again highlight the wastages in this government. Why should we spend like $1 billion to buy vehicles for Ruto, Rigathi, and Mudavadi? It doesn't make sense. So he should use the international media to highlight this. Then he should also have a kind of a strategy on how he's going to appeal to the emotions of Kenya Kwanza, because there are certain elements in Kenya Kwanza who are actually dissatisfied with this government. For example, I was reading one of the newspapers that in Murang'a, they closed shops. There were no demonstrations in Murang'a. There were no signs of demonstrations in Murang'a. But the businessmen down there decided they were not going to open shops just to show or to express their displeasure with the government. So they must have a proper plan on how they will appeal emotionally to Kenya Kwanza brigades. So for me, sustainability is something which Raila Odinga is planning, because Kenya Kwanza believes that it's not going to sustain it. Raila Odinga is prepared to sustain the demonstrations. The third thing is communication strategy or messaging. For me, here is where Raila Odinga has always failed. I'm told that they are trying to have a media consultant. Raila Odinga is planning to have a media consultant who is going to come up with a communication strategy with a proper messaging. Raila needs the media. How is he relating with the media? Because already, if you are keen, majority of media houses are already aligning themselves with William Ruto and his government, because William Ruto is already the president of the Republic of Kenya. So most media houses are aligning. Someone was telling me today that I didn't listen, but Ramogi TV had guests. And one guest was supposed to be Azimio, the other was supposed to be Kenya Kwanza. So the two guests who were at that show were actually allied to Kenya Kwanza, which means whatever they wanted Kenyans to hear meant for the Luos were actually from Kenya Kwanza. And even the panelists themselves were shocked that, we expected to have Azimio guy here. Why are we not having Azimio guy? So the truth is, media is something they must invest in. The other thing is propaganda. If there's one thing which William Ruto has succeeded, is propaganda, twisting things. How can Raila Odinga and Azimio brigades come up with propaganda which can then be sold to Kenyans, and Kenyans can swallow like they normally swallow. What do Kenyans like swallowing? Let me know. Is it like in Njugu or Uganda? I don't know. Yeah, but they must also come with a proper propaganda strategy. And then the messaging. Initially when Raila Odinga announced that he was going to lead his supporters to demonstrate, he came up with around 15 points, which were too much. Then those points were condensed to 3 points, which is which are making the demands: the cost of living, the servers, and the IBC commissioners. For me, Raila Odinga must now reduce the messaging to two items, one or two. Either it should have cost of living, which I think can rally all Kenyans around it, cost of living, and also be ready to challenge Kenya Kwanza. Be ready to challenge Kenya Kwanza, because Kenya Kwanza is also very good in propaganda. Like, for example, they are saying that before elections, the cost of unga was 135, and Kenyans are believing, while we know that the cost of unga at that time was around 99 bob. And Kenyans have actually shared receipts, several of them. Even I have one where the cost of unga was bought at at 100. So they should be able to come up with a very good messaging strategy. Not a lot of it, but just condensed issue. For me, I would suggest that Raila Odinga should focus on cost of living and electoral justice. Two. Where electoral justice, he can then talk of the recruitment of IBC and the servers. How, for example, the recruitment of IBC determines the server, the person who is given the tenders to procure. Because when you talk of the commissioners, what about the secretariat, where Chiloba was before, where Marjan, the guy who did the donkey work, are? So for me, Raila Odinga must invest in communication strategy. And the other important thing for me is branding. We had demos, I think, in Tunisia, South Africa, Kenya, Senegal also. We had them in Nigeria, four countries. But the EFF of Julius Malema, the Economic Freedom Fighters demonstrations, was branded. Everybody went there in red. And when they were walking, you could tell. What about Azimio? Kila mtu alijitokezea na nguo zake, which was a good thing because it means nobody mobilized them. But sometimes you need a kind of branding. And branding comes in two different ways. Branding is that he needs to brand the demos as a national issue, which is easy to do with a good, proper communications strategy. But again, the physical branding, where you agree that for these demos, when you are leaving your house, please make sure you put on white. The challenge with that is that the police can easily identify you and deal with you. Or when you are coming for these demos, please carry handkerchiefs, carry headcuffs, or just tie a red or a white band, so that when Kenyans will be leaving their homes, they'll be living prepared for the demos. It gives it, like someone was telling me on this channel that, Lee, I need you to pass this message to Baba. Why don't he just have Kenyan flags printed, then distributed to supporters? And I was telling him, Kenyan flag, because Kenyans are not patriotic, you can even be arrested for flying it on your car. It's like other countries. But you can do flags and remove the coat of arms. Maybe have, already when you see the military fatigue, then that is Azimio demos. Then how can they now have that brown to be dominant during rallies? Are they going to encourage their supporters to put on brown? Or are they going to have even, just something to show or to identify demonstrators with? And lastly, these demos, Raila Odinga is going to narrow them to cost of living. That is what the international media picked. All international media stated clearly that Kenyans are demonstrating because of cost of living. And cost of living is a cross. So that is the only thing Raila Odinga should run away with. And he should not just focus on cost of living. There are so many things he can focus on. For example, the tax regime. Mtumba guys are now being told that per kilo, instead of paying 42, now you'll be paying 100. I hope you understand what that means. It's huge. It's going to be huge difference. There are so much taxes which Kenyans are paying, which they should not be paying. Highlight them. Take Kenya Power electricity bill. Ask Kenyans to send. Kenyans will be sending when they're watching you live on TV. Just tell them, Kenyans, if you have 100 shillings, I want you to pay your electricity bill. Blah, 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 blah. What do you get? Then you read for them. Then you ask them, is that fair? Walikuwa wamesema ni Uhuru. Uhuru is now not the president. Is it fair? So for me, those are some of the things Raila Odinga is likely to do. Until next time, this is Liam Makwiny. Bye-bye.